The best love is self-love, and if you happen to be single this Valentine's Day, now is the perfect time to pamper your mind, body, and soul. Therapist Sierra Hillsman shares some self-care tips that you can put into practice today. Sierra, welcome back. I'm so happy we're talking to you about Valentine's Day, of course, the day of love. It can be challenging for people without a partner, but you're here with some great tips because it really is just one day out of the year. So what advice do you have for people, let's say, who maybe recently broke up?
Yes, definitely. Thank you for having me. So first off, I would definitely encourage individuals to practice relentless honesty. Check in with yourself on how you're dealing with this particular season in your life, because realistically speaking, just because you're broken up, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing.
Right.
So for some individuals, a breakup may be devastating or may cause depression or anxiety, but for some of us, a breakup might be the best thing in this particular time. So ask yourself, how am I feeling in this moment, and what do I need to do to tend to my experience?
Yes, that's terrific advice. All right, something else that's kind of a new phenomenon with the rise of online dating. It's called ghosting. What tips do you have for getting over that rejection if you have been ghosted by someone?
Yes, when it comes to rejection, consider replacing those why questions with how questions. Oftentimes, when we find ourselves being ghosted, we're asking, why me?
Right.
Why is this happening to me? Why not? Why didn't this person communicate? So consider asking, how can I approach this in a different manner? How can I turn this into a learning lesson opportunity? And how can I reframe this particular experience?
I love that. I think in my single days, I would just agonize over the whys. At the end of the day, that person clearly is not for you. So you got to get past that. It's like an ego thing. You got to get past the ego, the rejection, right? And keep on moving forward. All right, and speaking of that, I think the reason the ghosting part hurts is because many of us, we want that closure when it comes to ending of a relationship. So how important truly is closure?
Closure is important, but something for us to consider, we do not necessarily need the acknowledgement of the other individual when it comes to closure. When we're talking about the forgiveness process or even the healing process, our healing journey is not dependent on the other individual. And going back to those why questions, we may not ever get the answers that we're looking for. And so learning to recognize that we do not necessarily have to depend on the other person to acquire closure.
Amen. I love that. I know a lot of people needed to hear that. All right, now let's talk about self-care tips for the big day. What are some suggestions?
Because you know, I'm really big on social support. So learn to tap into those healthy relationships that are already currently present in your life. Then another thing to consider as well is to avoid comparing your journey to somebody else's, right? Your single season may be looking differently in comparison to somebody else's single season. And also we understand that, you know, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. So just because somebody's in a relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are just as happy as you are. So learn to honor the season that you're in and appreciate all the things that you're experiencing in this present moment. And lastly, learn to work towards challenging those thoughts, especially those persecutory thoughts that try to beat us down. So utilize this time to get back to the things that you once enjoyed.
Yes.
Utilize this time to be able to leverage your strengths and make sure that you are learning to cultivate some level of enjoyment in your life. Fulfillment comes within. You don't need another person to complete you.
Oh, this is so, so good. Any last tidbit that you'd like to share before we go?
Because I really do want to hone in on honoring your journey. Rather than looking at time as an enemy, reframe it and look at time as a friend. Because I definitely encourage you, whatever season that you're in, whether you're in a relationship, just recently broken up, or maybe even in the dating season of your life, take time to honor you by honoring time.
Oh, I love it all. Thank you so much, Sierra. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.